Sometimes when I'm speaking, I hear from members of the audience about their testing program. I remember in the early days when we began to speak about testing and optimization. In the early days of the internet, believe it or not, there wasn't a budget for optimization. There was no testing program, and we had to advocate for testing itself. Now, many organizations are doing it, but not so well. In fact, it's disappointing and sometimes shocking to see that most testing programs are not so much a program as they are a series of hits and misses. A chaotic selection of potential variables with no design of experiments. Let me just give you one thing to consider if you're not seeing the results that you would like to see. I'm going to assume that you have the other variables down right. Adequate data collection, analytics, and especially a well-designed test in the sense of being able to ascertain how well it performed and that you've protected yourself from validity threats. If all that is in place, and by the way, I think in 60 to 70% of the time it's not. But that's something you can do. You can make sure that's right. Then beware of your entire approach to testing. Testing should begin with a hypothesis that comes out of observation. And that hypothesis is essential to designing the test right. And there are classes of hypotheses. And you have to think about some fundamental questions before you decide that it's the headline you're going to focus on. First of all, think of the page itself as representing a category of a certain kind of approach. For instance, let's take a subscription form. Sometimes these take the form of a long copy ask. Sometimes they take the form of a brief explanation and 3 choices, maybe a radial button. Sometimes it takes the form of a comparison chart and allows you to choose right there what you want. I think there's not more than a dozen approaches to the classic subscription form. And before you start testing, make certain that you've started with some radical redesigns and you've considered what is the set of possibilities, which one am I using, how do I know that this approach is the best approach, and then build into your testing program 2 levels. Level 1 is testing some radical approaches. Level 2 is incrementally approving which ones of those radical approaches or which one is working best. Sometimes there's more than one based on segmentation. Now, this changes everything because we often fail to see the results we desire because we're doing incremental improvements on the wrong design. Some pages shouldn't be improved, they should be replaced. So pan back and in your thinking, ask yourself, what are the set of choices, possibilities, approaches? You can do this by just a brief study of the marketplace. Then say, am I even on the right page, so to speak? Do I have the right approach? And the only way you're going to know that is to test some radical new approaches. We're afraid of radical. We're afraid because we think the goal of a test is to get a lift. That's not true. The goal of a good test is to get a learning. Now that learning, done right, will compound with your next test and will build a more robust customer theory, which leads to a true lift, an ultimate lift. Don't settle for your successes, because sometimes that's where we're failing the most. We get a 20% lift and we're thrilled and we move on to the next area, but we could have got an 80% lift, and so we're leaving 60% on the table every single day. We haven't maximized the gain because we're just doing a hit or miss test approach. We haven't even thought through a sort of tight, intelligent way to maximize the value of our testing program.